That is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Coming at you one day early because it is Independence Day week. We figured if we recorded on a Wednesday and next day's Independence Day, your cats know we're recording.
Hey,
I swear to God, your cats are quiet until they hear my voice going through your headphones.
I hate that dude.
They're like, all right, let's start fucking around. Independence Day week.
Get out of here. Go.
Normally they wait till the end of the show to try to integrate themselves.
They're just mean jerks.
They're just big fans of George Washington. So we're doing a day early. So you guys aren't watching, so you guys, I know how much of you guys like to listen like at work and during your commute. And if you got 4th of July off, it's like, all right, one day early. Why not? I got
it's a cool gift.
The British Blue, a 13 colony lead tank top. Getting in the mood.
Nice.
I have novelty patriotic tank tops I wore throughout the week. This is one of them.
My big contribution tomorrow, tomorrow as you're listening to this, I actually bought some board shorts, but they are a replica of the Apollo Creed American flag shorts from Rocky.
Historic.
Yeah.
Goddamn landmark, those things.
I love them.
Are they super, super short like his? Like, are we going to see some thigh?
Hell no. Super long. I'll be dragging over my knees.
And since we're a day early, we are 67 days away until the Raiders kick off. And Apollo's super jacked.
Get out of here.
I've been listening to your cats cry so much, I know which one's which.
I know. He's the lighter one. The other one's like, oh. Fucking jerks, man.
I think half the listeners do too. So the big question, roster-wise, the biggest question is depth. Outside, and I think that's something we'll get to later. That's turned into the biggest question roster-wise is depth. We know who our two quarterbacks are. One of our two quarterbacks who they're going to be. Mm-hmm. Who is it going to be is the big question, but we know it's either going to be Favre or Gardner. It looks like the whole let's get another starting right tackle probably isn't going to happen. It seems like
no.
The staff is pretty happy with who they got. We thought maybe they should or that they would. Doesn't seem like it. However, cornerback still needed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's someone's going to have to drastically step up on who's currently on the roster, or more likely we pick somebody up. And Vic Tafer of The Athletic did his kind of Q&A mailbag. Highly recommend you guys subscribe to The Athletic. It's a 1-year subscription. Mine just kicked in yesterday. I was like, what? $59 charge? Oh, yeah, every year. Worth every dime. I recommend it. And in the mailbag, he was asked a question. I know it's been said publicly, but the Raiders can't possibly be thinking about leaving the cornerback room as is, right? Maybe they're posturing to bring someone's price down. To which Tafer responded, Steven Nelson was on the Raiders' radar, but he decided to retire. I expect they will bring in a cornerback at the start of training camp or shortly thereafter. So it looks like the Raiders were targeting a starting corner. It looks like that's what they were doing. And so if they're targeting one and he retires, it makes sense that they're targeting another one. Soto.
Well, yeah, it's always got to be a backup plan. So by targeting a veteran, more than likely short term, they're saying that they're showing their cards. They're not absolutely sold on their cornerback room. Mm-hmm. So they're going to look for another person. And you can say this for the entire roster. Like the cornerback room is just a microcosm for like tackle and the offensive line and quarterback room, and it's a lot of different groups out there. You can say the same thing. There's two different perspectives on it. There's the outsider perspective looking in, and there's the insider perspective. And from an outsider's perspective, they really haven't done much this year. And
free agency wise,
and what we're seeing here is a lot of crossing your fingers and hopes and dreams, mm-hmm. and a lot of like trusting the development of what's been going on, and that the younger players will take a next step. It's supposed to happen. Younger players are supposed to get better as they get older and more experienced. It doesn't always happen that way. but that's the big one because we didn't make a lot of sweeping changes. The changes that we did make, other than Christian Wilkins, were not crazy, barn burning deals and stop the presses. So cornerback room, there's a couple of guys out there that can still play, that can still fit a need on this team and can help this young secondary.
So we've narrowed it down to, I think we both mutually agreed on our top 5.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't rank them because they all offer different pluses and minuses. We'll get to them in 1 second. I just want to say to reiterate and kind of just piggyback off what you're saying. Yeah, outside of Wilkins and Gardner Minshew, what was like the third biggest signing? Like it's been pretty quiet, right?
I mean, was Gardner really even that big of a signing, honestly?
I mean, it gets headlines, right? Like, a guy that has starting quarterback experience. But that's my point. Yeah. When he's your second biggest signing.
Yeah.
And then whatever 3 is, it's a distant third. And even I keep bringing up Tafer. He made a really good point in his mailbag. He's like, look, Telesco's been here 5 months. He's still getting to know what he has on his hands. He's still trying. And the head coach has been head coach, his interim head coach for, 8 weeks and then just got the job not that much before. Right. So it's kind of, I kind of like how he's not jumping in, diving in both feet, huge moves right out of the gate. Like you remember the giant moves that the last regime did, extending Waller a season and a half too early. I know you hated the Hunter Renfrow contract.
How'd that work out?
Right, that didn't go well. Right, the Carr contract was good because it was a 1 year for pennies, and then so it wasn't like the contract was bad, but it ended up falling apart. We got nothing for him because no trade clause. Like they just made all these giant moves out of the gate, and it all went to shit. So I'm kind of down, and it is very Telesco to be like.
Patience, development.
Let's see what we got. Let's see what we don't got. Okay, Christian Wilkins, he fits perfectly. We've got the money. We'll do that. Everything we'll just slow down. We'll wait and see. Very, very Tom Telesco. And as he's been our GM, longer and longer, we're starting to get a vibe of who he is more and more. Again, we can look back on what he's done in his last dozen years or so as a GM, but we didn't follow him the way a Charger fan would. So we're still kind of get to know him. And from what we know, this seems like him very much. So I would say to people that freaked out with how little moves we made, they're easing in, and that's probably the right thing to do. And the other part is there are probably half a dozen players that we're going to want to extend pretty soon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you got to start balancing that, right? Nate Hobbs and Spillane and Merrick and
Koontz.
Like there's a lot of guys out there that. They're
Parham.
The discussion for their extensions are happening. They don't have to happen right this second, but the discussions are underway, right? Yep. So they got to balance all those extensions with the cap space that they have, who they want to pick up. Eventually, we're going to have to pay a quarterback a lot if we're going to have a quarterback that we want, right? Eventually, like no good quarterback comes cheap. At some point, we're going to have to pay somebody. Mm-hmm. And so it's that balancing act. So, and this is something that I wasn't even really thinking a month ago. It was like, we got $30 million in cap space. What are we doing? Why aren't we spending it? Come on, let's go. And even I had to like, all right, RJ, brake pedals on the left. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
The bulk of the guys that we're talking about probably won't even want to be signed until like into training camp. These are all like 30-something-year-old veterans. The youngest dude's 28. Like they're going to like, I kind of want my summer off, So the timeline I was kind of hesitant about, it's like I was a little like anxious. I'm not anymore. Now, if we do nothing halfway through training camp, different story. But right now, I'm happy with like the rate that we are going.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch of times before about how Telesco does things, and he follows the D's like both you and I do. He discovers, drafts, develops, and then he decides. And it's how you build a team for the long term. And right now we are in the development phase because there's a lot of good talent on this roster. And like you were saying before, the alternative to what we're doing now is what John Gruden did. He came in, got rid of Mack and Cooper right away. Wait, whoa. Mm-hmm. What's going on here? Just because you don't get along with them and you bump heads with them and you're an egomaniac, you're just going to get rid of two of our best players? Like, okay, slow down a second. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're okay. we didn't make a lot of moves, but we have a lot of there's a lot of promising young players who are looking to take that next step. And if they do in concert, the bulk of them, it's going to be a big difference.
And with all that said, we got 5 corners that we want. And hopefully we'll get one of these guys by mid-July.
Jesus Christ. Shut up. God damn, dude.
I'm trying to figure out if he meows when there's something specific. Like, is it the sound of my voice that does it? Is it when you stop talking he does it?
I got the headset on. He can't hear you. The issue is
Cat's got 6 sense, 9 lives and 6 senses.
He wants to. Well, look.
He just wants to let you know who's in charge.
I treated the bed with this like enzyme spray, and they don't like it.
So they're gonna make your life a living hell.
Get down. Oh, I fucking hate this. I hate him. I'm gonna throw.
You need to start crate training him.
He didn't even move. Jerk. Here, another hat. Get down, fucker.
So in no particular order,
Jesus.
we've targeted 5 free agent cornerbacks that we think can help this team. All of them would most likely be pretty short contracts, right? 1 year or 2.
Mm-hmm.
All of them would be, they're all coming from different backgrounds and explaining why they're free agents. And they all offer something a little different. I didn't rank them. Maybe you will at the end. Maybe, you can, I'm sure you have like a favorite and a least favorite, but I think they all offer a different upside and different downside. And I have a question for each one of them. All right. We'll start with Stephon Gilmore, 33 years old. His last contract was 2 years, $20 million. He started every single game last season, but there was a shoulder injury at the beginning of the very last game of the regular season. So he's coming off injury despite not being like a bunch of injuries that like were nagging and keeping right. It was just kind of like one big one. I don't know which one's better or worse, but that's kind of what it was. And my question is, would he play on a young, unproven team at 33 years old? Kind of one of those guys that's like, all right, get me on a winner, and so I can retire in the next year or 2.
I think he would, but it's going to be a late signing. It's going to be like, well, we don't want to pay for a 33-year-old corner who's lost a little bit, still good, but we have to pay a lot more for him. We have younger guys. This is one of the guys that I don't think we're going to sign because he just checks too many boxes in the wrong category, in the wrong side. He's a little older. His skills are diminishing. We've seen a steady decline, although he has played well. We've seen a decline in his play the last few seasons steadily. So it's not like, he's been doing in just 1 year was a drop off. It's been a steady decline. He is older and he's coming off of injury. Those are a lot of negative marks.
I would say, and we'll get to the other 4 guys in a minute. I would say, gun to my head, who's just like the best corner week 1 of this next season? It'd probably be him. Now, there's guys that are scheming better. There's guys that are younger. But just blanket statement, I would say the best possible player overall would be Gilmore. And so that's what kind of intrigues me the most by him. He's probably just going to be the best, most likely, right? Like you said, he's declining, but not. Stephon Gilmore at 80% of his prime is still really good. And
Defensive Player of the Year 1 year,
right? Probably the best, probably the best corner on our team, right? Depending on how Jack Jones develops. So, I think he would, but I think it's kind of what you said. I think it'd be expensive. I think it'd be kind of late, and we'd have to get lucky. It'd have to be some of the contenders are like, we're good, not enough draft capital, something like, or cap space, something like that to get him. Next one, Xavien Howard, 30 years old. When the Dolphins released him, he had 3 years remaining on a 5-year, $90 million contract. So this is kind of like the Christian Wilkins, where he's good. Like, this is exactly the kind of free agent you want. Like, guys are free agents for a reason. Either they're not good anymore, locker room cancer, injuries that are kind of hidden, or the best case scenario, just a cap casualty. The Dolphins had to release guys. They just could not afford all these giant contracts, and Xavien Howard is one of them. He has said specifically in interviews he wants to go to a contender. Like, I will take a pay cut to go to a contender. So here's the question. Are the Raiders contenders enough to lure him?
I think the lure is going to be Christian Wilkins. I think if Christian Wilkins is like, no, dude, this team they got things going over here. Like, you're going to want to be a part of this. If that can happen, then I can see Xavien Howard being on that team. The only reason why Xavien Howard got cut is because you have two super duper expensive receivers on that team, on that Miami team, and you're going to have to pay your quarterback soon. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason they let him go. They're probably going to extend Tua this year, which is they're going to need the cap space for that.
They're coming out of their like push all in on a rookie quarterback window. Like that window closed.
Yeah, it's closing already, and it's all right. And they waited long enough. They have no more time to do it. Mm-hmm. And the big money for the Tyreek Hill contracts are starting to roll in. The first couple of years were like a little bit of a cushion, and then now this is the big money starts to come in. And Waddle's got paid, so it's like it's gonna you can only have so much money to throw out there, and I think Xavien Howard would be a good fit for us, and I think with the familiarity with Wilkins, I think it could be a possibility.
You need Wilkins to do some tampering, some semi-illegal tampering.
It's not tampering if it's the players doing it. I mean,
give him a call, right? Hit him up on social media. I'm surprised I haven't seen that anywhere, right? Like Wilkins kind of like luring him over. He'd also probably be, of all the guys we're talking about, probably the one that's going to want the longest contract and probably the most expensive. I'm guessing that's what he would want.
He probably would be the most expensive.
He was like 40% of the way through a 5-year, $90 million contract.
That was a funny money contract, though.
They all are, but like the rest of these guys.
At least the other contract, at least half of it is guaranteed. The half of the years. This is they cut him for a very minimal dead cap.
Yeah, but compared to all these other guys, he was balls deep in a contract, right? That would be the hardest one. Is like you got to be a contender, make him pay.
JC Jackson,
Well, we'll get to that. I said that one for last for a reason.
Yeah.
The other Jackson, Adoree Jackson, 28. Last year he had a 3-year, $39 million, $24.5 million guaranteed. Pretty good guarantees for a cornerback contract. Tons of injuries. He has been plagued with injuries the whole time he was in New York. But because he's in New York, would a return to play with Patrick Graham again entice him enough to want to come to the Raiders?
Definitely. I think Adoree played some of his best ball under PG. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to be asked to do a lot of different things that they were asking him to do with the Giants. They were asking him to return punts and return kicks and all that stuff. Like, that's not him anymore. Just go out there, be the corner that we know you can be. Super athletic, just quick, ball hawking type of corner. I saw him play a lot at SC, and he was just a do everything kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He's just super athletic, and just imagine a faster Amik Robertson, how he was always around the ball, mm-hmm. but a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, and I think overall better corner than Amik. But yeah, that would be a good get. There is that substantial injury history. I don't know that I think one time he missed substantial time, but it's always something.
Yeah,
where he's nicked up and he's missing a game here, a couple games there, and that's not really what we're looking for.
Well, I mean, we'd have to rely on our depth if he was our a starting outside corner. Like, all right, guys, like Vason, like guys, like you're gonna be getting some time. If Adoree's our starter, you all got to be ready, right? But again, anyone who knows that was we talked about this before. Like when Patrick Graham first came in 2 seasons ago, remember his defense didn't really kick in right away. It took a while for it to work because he had brand new guys at corner all the time, mm-hmm. and it's like if guys don't know the scheme, it's just like all you can do is bump and run. Like you can't, like you don't have enough time to be able to, switch into quarters and do we go from a cover 3 to cover 1? Like you just have to do that, right? This guy's coming in knowing the system. Out of all the guys, his learning curve is gonna be the shortest.
Yeah.
So the only thing really is the injury, and he's the youngest of the 5 we're talking about, and he's the one I'm most worried about injury wise. So it's not going to get better, but the injury is always such a wild card. Like you always kind of assume, if you have an injury history, it's going to continue. And you always assume if you have no injury history, that's going to continue. And sometimes they completely flop. They flip-flop, right? Guys have been injured forever, and they go 5 years, no problem. Guys, in the first 5 years of their 5 seasons of their career, no injuries, and then boom, they just fall off the wagon, right? So that's the giant. He's the biggest wild card to me out of the 5. No wild card. You know exactly what you're getting with Patrick Peterson. 33 years old. His last contract was 2 years, $14 million, only $5.8 million guaranteed. This is like a potential future Hall of Famer that did a $5 million deal. That's how hanging on by a thread he still kind of is to be able to still play in the NFL. So the question with this guy is does his veteranship outweigh the massive age decline? So he's going to get beat. He's not going to be the same level tackler, but can he be the general of our DB room? And and how he helps everyone else, will that outweigh the massive physical decline of a 12-year player?
This one's intriguing. He doesn't have a very extensive injury history. He's just, we talked about 80% of Stephon Gilmore is really good. 75% of Patrick Peterson is still really good. And I think he can be like that coach on the field. We have a really young secondary. And for someone like Patrick Peterson, who our very first guest, AJ Hawk, what do you say? Guys listen to the players that make plays. That holds a lot of weight in the locker room. Patrick Peterson comes in as someone who's going to more than likely be a Hall of Famer. And he says, this is how I prepare. This is how I get ready. This is what I do. This is what I look for in tape. And it's just like you wrote here, it's going to that veteran leadership is going to help a lot. Plus, he can still play at a level that's going to be, he's better than Faison. He's better than Bennett, even at 33.
Yep. And you get him for real cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Last 2-year deal is $5.8 million. That's what you're negotiating against. Real cheap. So he's an interesting one with how veteran he is. And then the last one, the most interesting, at least to talk about, JC Jackson. He's still only 28 years old. You remember that last giant contract that the Chargers gave him? God bless. That was that Chargers regime.
Freaking Telesco. Telesco did him.
Oh, Jesus. Telesco, very familiar with JC Jackson. 5 years, $82 million, $40 million guaranteed. The second he signed that deal, he went to shit.
Yeah.
Injured.
Well, he got injured his first season, and then he got a new coach the second season, and the defense was completely different. Didn't suit him very well. There is.
It was a healthy scratch on a 5-year, $80 million contract.
Yeah.
That second.
Yeah. It just wasn't. It wasn't working, and I think maybe his attitude was a little bit of an issue as well because of it. There's a little bit of a tie to Patrick Graham from the whole Patriot thing, and it's also a kind of a tie a little bit with Xavien Howard as well from Brian Flores in Miami, and JC Jackson was with the Patriots, and Patrick Graham was with them a while back. So there's some familiarity in the secondary with how they play and what they're looking for. I can see JC Jackson coming in with a guy like Patrick Graham, right? With a guy like Antonio Pierce, with Tom Telesco, a guy who's already shown to have a lot of faith in him and belief in him, to say, look, we believe in you. We're going to try you out on this deal here, but the money's coming if the play and the attitude is right. And I don't know that Patrick Graham is going – if this goes through, there's a big if. But if this goes through, I don't see them making that move unless Patrick Graham knows exactly what he's going to do with him.
Oh, yeah. So you answered my question before I asked it, because you think like, okay, it didn't work out with the Chargers. Like, all right, Brandon Staley's a schmuck. Maybe you can kind of blame that. Maybe, okay, maybe that's where we place the blame, right? Brandon Staley sucked. But then he goes to the Patriots, where it's supposed to be the most hard-nosed, we'll get the best out of you place. Healthy scratch. Didn't last there either, right? So if we do pick him up, and the talent's there, right? There's it's very specific, right? I think he has to play a very specific type of corner.
Very specific role, yeah.
But the talent is there. But is the head case an issue? So the big question is, can Antonio Pierce, Patrick Graham, and this like baller locker room that exists, can that set him straight? Because you want to use it, right? Like we had this big argument about, Russell Wilson's like, oh, don't bring him in, he'll destroy the locker room. It's like, well, you have a great locker room and that's an asset that you can use, right? So like you can bring in potentially maybe a JC Jackson who's a head case, maybe a pinhead, and this locker room is strong enough to get out to fix him, right? Not the other way around, right? He's not going to poison the locker room. The locker room is going to heal him. So it's AP getting his head right, PG scheming him correctly, and this locker room being like, this is how we roll. Max and everybody, we're here at 6 a.m. working. We're busting our ass every single time out. We're not taking any reps off. I don't care what your deal is. This is how we work here, right? Like all those things together could maybe make turning JC Jackson around a thing in Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, and JC Jackson is the type of player that you want to take a chance on. Mm-hmm. You don't want to take a chance on a character issue when he's your starting quarterback, because that holds too much weight in the locker room. If he wants to, the potential for a coup is a lot higher with someone who has that kind of pull, right? But a guy who's been paid, bounced around, been humbled a little bit with, healthy scratch and, cut from a team that gave him a bunch of money and stuff like that. That's the type of guy that you want to take a chance on. And they did it with Jack Jones. He came in there and he did have that familiarity and a history with Antonio Pierce, but it's a nice gamble with the contract that he's going to probably get. It's not going to be anything crazy. So it's a good gamble to make. And it's like you said, it's the reason why you want to use everything to your advantage, or you want to use that locker room to your advantage too, which is, we'll keep them in line. AP, you do your thing from the coach. I get it, but we're going to do most of the heavy lifting as far as keeping him in line,
especially the defensive side of the ball.
Oh,
right?
Jesus.
You've got such leadership with Max, and then like PG knows what he's doing, and then you got Wilkins. It's just like, offensive side of the ball is still
and Epps is a guy who's a kind of a leader in the secondary as well, and you've just seen it work with Jack Jones. You've just seen it. You've seen it where a guy was basically just cut, put on the scrap heap, and a change of scenery. It does make a difference to a player coming in when a team is able to put their arms around a guy and say, look, we know you can play. This is what we want to do, but just know that you got to stay in line. And everyone's in line. So it could work. That's the most intriguing for me, is the JC Jackson.
I can just imagine Tom Telesco going up to him and being like, remember the last contract I offered for you? Just move the decimal point over 1.
You owe me now. You owe me. I give you an 8.2 2-year, 8.2,
82. 80,
no,
yeah.
8.2 now.
Now it's an 8.2, right?
With
move the decimal point over.
Yeah.
When it averages out, it's like I'm paying you $20 million guaranteed between the two contracts, right? So you owe me, I believe in you that much now. I believe in you as much now, but now it's coming on 10 cents on the dollar.
You work for the bank, and the bank works for me. So ipso facto, you work for me.
What movie is that from? Let us know in the comments. So of those 5, Soto, Stephon Gilmore, Xavien Howard, Adoree Jackson, Patrick Peterson, JC Jackson. Is there one guy you want the most? Is there one guy you definitely don't want? Is there one guy that I definitely want him if? I would sign this guy to a 4-year deal. Because they're all so different, right? There's not one. Yeah. I would be happy with any one of them. To be honest.
For sure.
Be like, okay, this will work. But some of them come with stipulations more than others.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs. I think the guy with the least amount of ifs on the field is Xavien Howard.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the least amount of ifs on the field. There is a familiarity with Christian Wilkins, right? Mm-hmm. if the money's right, and
Well,
ultimately
he's the one that's straight up said, I'll pay for less on a contender. And if you're outside looking in, I don't think anyone's looking at the Raiders as like Super Bowl favorites. So it'd have to be something else would draw him, right? Like, I think I'm with you. I just think he's of the five, he's straight up said, I'll take less money to be on a contender.
Yeah. Next from there, I actually would like a Patrick Peterson. And I know that might be a little bit of
a Patrick Peterson, not the Patrick Peterson.
Well, I mean, if there's a couple of them, I'll take any one of them.
The idea of a Patrick, yeah, I get what you're saying. A Patrick Peterson like substance. There's like cheap veteran that can help everyone.
Because look, man, he's gonna come cheap, number one. So it's not gonna eat into a lot of the cap that you already have. So you still have flexibility to sign guys later. You still have flexibility to extend your own guys. Maybe give yourself a little bit of a flexibility next year because you can carry over some cap for the following year. So, and I mean, the drop off in play has not been substantial, consistent. It's been slowly. It's in a slope. It's been slowly going down, but it's still very good for the. We're not asking to be our shutdown corner, okay? And the intangibles he brings, as far as we still have a very young crew, a very young corner group.
He's a 4.3, 4.40 guy, right? So he like relied on his speed for so long, and now that's dissipating, he kind of gets burned a little bit, or kind of like more so than we'd like. That's what goes, right? Like if you're like a savvy corner, you can play longer, right? Like the receivers that are just like built on speed, it's like they don't like Davante Adams will be a top receiver for years to come because he's not built on speed, super reliant on speed, super reliant on physicality, right? Patrick Peterson pretty reliant on speed. And now that that's gone, like if we got him, he will get beat deep a couple times. Like that's going to be.
Well, I mean, yes, but I don't see Patrick Graham putting him in that position a lot. Mm-hmm. I see him giving him some help, and I definitely think that he still has the skill. Because look, I mean, at 33 years old, I think he's still faster than Brandon Faison. Brandon Faison is a big corner, but he's not fast.
Yeah,
and so it's like, well, what's the alternative to if we just roll with what we got, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you do get some diminishing skill set with him, but what you get in the positive, I think, more than makes up for that.
I like Gilmore for the reason I said at the very beginning. I think day one, week one, painting in broad strokes, not system, not asterisk, not everything's perfect on this end. I think he's the best. I think just like as of right this second, I think he would be the best.
I think he'd definitely be with the most consistent. Mm-hmm. I think Jack
well-rounded.
I think Jack Jones could be better, but he's not as consistent. But I mean, a lot of times as at a corner, you just need somebody consistent. You don't need somebody who's flashy. You just need somebody who does the right thing, and he could definitely be that guy. I'm a little bit concerned with the injury so late in the season. And I'm a little bit concerned with the drop-off because it wasn't like he was as physically gifted as Patrick Peterson was when he was younger. Mm-hmm. So he was, you can only be that crafty left-hander out of the bullpen for so long. Mm-hmm. When it's like, hey, man, you got to throw past somebody sometime.
Yeah.
And that's my only concern with him. As far as his play and his in between the ears, no, he's great.
And he'll probably be the second most expensive. Xavien Howard will be number one.
Yeah. And Gilmore.
And then I think Gilmore will be number two, probably. The other ones are Peterson will be the cheapest. The two Jacksons, their contracts could be anything. Like JC will not get that monster deal, but he's young enough where someone might give him 3 years, right?
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a 3-year on JC let me preface this, okay? Mm-hmm. If everything checks out, right? If everything checks out as far as they meet with the guy, they like him, they go through the rules, they go through everything, they have a fit for him and everything. I wouldn't mind doing a 3-year, heavier on the first and lighter on the second too. Maybe even the third is like non-guaranteed at all. Just to kind of like, hey, this is the carrot we're dangling in front of you, there's more where this came from. We want you here, but you have to show us.
Get your act together.
Yeah, get your act together on and off the field and in between your ears, and we can talk turkey a little bit longer because hey, Telesco's already given him a bunch of money once. He's already liked them that much one time. I can see there being a very heart to heart conversation here with him, and it's intriguing. It's intriguing because honestly, like as far as the whole mix of everything, age, skill set, health, he's probably the best pick as far as that goes. Maybe not quite the peak as some of the other guys like Stephon Gilmore or Patrick Peterson, not quite their peak. But, at 28, maybe it's more of a head case than anything, a guy that you can bring in and put your arms around him and still be that, that iron fist in the velvet glove. Like, hey, we're gonna treat you right, but we're also going to let you know, hey, man, you can't mess around over here.
It would be very Raiders. He would be the most Raider pickup out of the 5.
Hey man, Lyle Alzado played for the Broncos, dude. Came over
I'll take AFC West players all day long, baby.
The twos play for the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, the Chargers and Pats. I'll take it, man.
Yeah, we'll take
it. Well, speaking of AFC West, I still have a semi after kicking the Chiefs' dicks in on Christmas. It was just so glorious. I think I wake up a couple times a week and I think about it because it was just so wonderful. And so the tight end that will remain nameless went on busting with the boys. And apparently that was the game that turned things around for that team. And because that tight end will remain nameless, on this podcast, he'll also remain faceless.
This season, did you kind of look around and realize these guys don't have the mentality we should have?
We got our ass beat by the fucking Raiders on Christmas.
The Raiders
fucking ruined Christmas, motherfuckers.
God,
dude, Pace has got he had those dudes ready to brawl right there on the field.
They were an old school Raiders mentality.
100%, man, and I love that shit. And I was like, man, if we play with that kind of edge or that kind of like toughness, that kind of like don't fuck with us mentality, like we won't be stopped.
Yeah,
and it just kind of it ended up like that. But that Raiders game was definitely one of the turning points for sure.
First off, who is Pace? Do you just call Antonio Pierce Pace?
I don't know.
Post-concussion syndrome?
Pace picante sauce is pretty terrible, too, so I don't know what he's talking about.
He looks like a guy that would eat Pace picante sauce. That's quesadilla. So apparently, he hates us because he wish he was us. That Antonio Pierce, bulldog, street fight mentality. He just wishes that they had.
It's... Like with fighters, right? There's fighters that you see it and that's who they are, and then there's fighters who can pull it from somewhere and show it at times, but it's not really them. And it comes out when like a bulldog fighter meets another bulldog fighter, like the real alpha dude comes out, and you can see it. So if KC is like, well, we need to play like that, let's play like that. Okay, great. You could pretend to be that person. You could pretend to be that team until you face somebody who's really that team. So fine, you can feel that way all you want. That's who we really are. You're just acting.
And that was the last time they lost. I mean, that really was like the kick in the face that woke them up. Where the Epsom salts. Like they literally went into like, I know it was an away game, but it was like you go into Vegas and you gamble all your money away, you fall in love with the hooker, you're so hungover and spracked out that you're just laying on the carpet of Las Vegas airport on that Sunday morning. You're like, I got to get my life back together. I got to figure this shit out. That's what we did to him. That's what happened to me one time. I had only one time in my life that I spend more money than was okay in Vegas gambling, and that was the Super Bowl weekend. We were supposed to be there just 3 days, and we bumped into some girls, and they're like, "Oh, we're staying until Tuesday." So like, all right, so are we. And I stayed there for 5. I spent literally every dime I had. I had not enough money to pay for a cab to get from the hotel to the airport. I had to take the bus, like 22, 23, something like that.
Terrible.
And I'm laying on the carpet of the airport, like, I got to get my shit together. I never went that hard, like made that big of a mistake ever again. But that was basically what we did to the Chiefs. It just reminded them, like, this is what happens when you mess with Las Vegas. You're going to end up hungover on the floor of the airport, wondering where your money is.
See, look, the big difference is the Chiefs aren't going to go into the next game against us and say, or they're going to go into the next game is like, remember what happened last time? We got to match that energy. We got to match this. We got to beat this and that. All the Raiders have to do is go in and be themselves. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about somebody who is that and somebody who's acting like that. The Chiefs have to go and they have to summon something that's extra. The Raiders don't have to do that. That's who they are.
The Chiefs are a finesse team, but they're pretending to be badasses. You know what I mean?
They're a bitch team. I took them to the Stanley Cup. Yeah, against the computer with the offsides off.
What movie? Let us know.
Come on, guys. That's a deep pull.
That's deep. So when you do go to a Raider game, I figured this is why you have cats, because you're a Raider fan, and it's impossible to be a Raider fan with kids. This has been floating around the interwebs.
I saw that.
Average cost per family to attend an NFL game. So the 4 cheapest tickets: parking, 4 hot dogs, 2 beers, 2 sodas.
Jesus.
So I'm assuming it's mom, dad, kid, and kid. We'll assume it's a son and daughter. The boys get the beers, the girls get the sodas, right? You each get the 4 hot dogs.
If she's a Raider fan, that wife ain't taking no soda.
Yeah, she ain't getting a soda. She's getting a soda, but she's taking that bottle of Maker's Mark in her purse.
That bum bottle, that plastic
dumped it in there.
That doesn't. Oh, that was so sweet.
I'm telling you guys, there's a lot of good reasons to wear cowboy boots. Number one reason is it fits those plastic 350 milliliter flasks that you buy at the liquor stores. Yeah. Fits right in the side perfectly. So you go through security, doesn't set off the alarm, doesn't show off anything, and you can only have those like see-through plastic bags that you take into NFL games because they know that they want to charge you $28 for a beer. They don't want you sneaking booze in. Sneak that booze in, boys. There's no drink more satisfying than booze snuck into a venue that's trying to shaft you with prices. Like, that has to be how America felt at the Boston Tea Party, throwing the tea into the ocean. Just like, oh fuck you, we win.
One of the best, well, I would say the best quality my ex-wife had was her ginormously nice nails. She would get those bum bottles and she would put them on the sides of her bra, and she would just walk in and they would wander. She'd just go like this, and they would wander. And of course, nothing would come up. And then she'd just reach inside her titty and pull a freaking bottle out.
Man, party's on.
Party is on.
$1,381 for the cheapest Raider game experience. Cheapest tickets. Only two beers, and not 2 beers per person. Only 2 of the 4. Who goes to a game and has 1 beer? And they're like, all right, that's good. That's got me fine for the next 3.5 hours.
It's absolutely nuts. Absolutely freaking crazy.
That's crazy. The Falcons were the cheapest, $293.
Dude, I mean, look, I'm going to the Raider home opener. If you guys are going to go to the home opener, hit me up. I'll probably go early just and be at a certain spot so I can meet you guys if you guys are going to be there. But man,
have a meet cute.
Yeah, right. And we'll take some pictures together or whatever. But I'm very happy I'm going to be in a suite.
And this is like, imagine how expensive it's going to be when the Raiders are good. Like, this is the price for a team that didn't go to the playoffs. They had a losing record last season. That's the price of it now. Once the Raiders start getting good, it's going to get.
I think it may stay somewhat similar because I think a lot of these Raider fans are going to stop selling a lot of their tickets. So we're not going to see that secondary market. So it could balance itself out.
Well, no. I mean, economics would say if there's a huge chunk of diehard Raider fans that are holding onto their tickets, that means the resale of whatever's left is going to go up.
Well, that's the kind of balance.
So, like, balance. Yeah. And also, look, we talk about it all the time. Like, Raider games, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, Cincinnati Bengals fan, if you're in these, flyover states and, it's just hell on earth in December in these cities, you're going to go, if you're going to go to a game, you're going to the Vegas game, right? You're like, let's make a vacation out of it. And you don't mind paying $1,300 because it's our vacation, right? It's different than just going to the game, or you have to do it, 9 times this season. It's just like, no, we're going to splurge. We're going to Vegas. We're going to lose that much gambling anyway. Once we've thrown in hotel and airfare, going to the Spearmint Rhino VIP room, it's just a drop in the bucket at that point, right? So it doesn't feel that expensive anymore when you compare it to what you cost to go there. That adds up. Plus all the hotels that are comping tickets, so that limits what's left, right? It all adds up, man. It all adds up to a very expensive experience for us Raider fans.
That's what we get for wanting the best seat in the best ticket in the nation.
Mm-hmm. And a not so fun article. I think we've all kind of seen this report. Jamarcus Russell back in the news. Report by WKRG. Jamarcus Russell out as Williamson assistant. That's a high school. Former NFL quarterback sued over $74,000 donation intended for alma mater. So he was a volunteer coach at a high school.
Jesus.
A donor wrote a $74,000 check that he handed to him to give to this football program. He deposited it and then cashed out $50,000 and kept for himself.
Man,
he is still robbing football teams to this day.
Yeah, man, that's the second. I tweeted out it's the second football team he's robbed in his career.
And of all that money he got, man, you're really gonna steal $50,000 from a high school, your high school,
bro? You're acting like these guys are like pillars of the community and they know what to do with their freaking money. That money has been gone for a while.
He always talks shit. Every couple years he pops up, he'll do a podcast or he'll say something, and every time he does, he's like,
I got done wrong. I got done dirty.
Well, no, there's that, but it's like, I got my money, I don't care. Anytime you bring up aren't you embarrassed? You're considered one of, if not the biggest draft bust of all time. How do you because that's how we all think of him that way. You think, Marcus Russell, you think biggest bust, what a waste, what a lazy bastard. We think of the story about how the coaches would give him game film to watch, but they'd be blank, and he'd come back and pretend he watched it when they know he didn't because it was blank and he never found it. That's what we think of. Humans don't think of themselves in terms of public perception, right? Humans think of themselves however they want, right? And so his big clapback is well, I made all that money. I'm a happy man. But did you lose it all? Is it all gone now? Is there a reason why you're robbing $50,000 from a high school after getting a $70 million contract, whatever he got?
Look, there's a reason why no other team took a chance on him. There's a reason, and it's
unprecedented for a number 1 overall.
Nobody wanted to not get a second chance. After the Raiders dropped him, nobody wanted him. He never played in the. I think he never played at all again. Right? He never played. He didn't play in a different league or anything like that. He was stuck. He got. Talk about just.
Dude, Josh Rosen got 6 shots. 6 teams gave Josh Rosen a shot.
The Rosen one.
No team gave Jamarcus Russell a second.
And you have to take a look at why.
Cardinals, Dolphins, Bucks, Niners, Falcons, Browns, Vikings. 7 teams gave Josh Rosen a shot. And no one gave Jamarcus Russell a second shot. That's so telling.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it was they trust Al Davis. A lot of the people in the league at the time, they're like, "What's up with this kid? Doesn't like football. Doesn't like working. This is what happened. I wouldn't touch him. I paid him all this money to go away." And everyone's like, "Well, that's all I wanted to hear. He's not even worth $1 million. He's not even worth a roster spot that we have to pay for him because if he doesn't work and he got this terrible advice from his agent to not play in the XFL or CFL or another league to show people that he still wants to play." Well, That's what happens.
And now he's robbing high schools.
Terrible.
5-year checks and getting sued. Ready to do some what up windbags?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Laura Milans. Love the show, longtime viewer. I'd love to hear you talk on who do you have more faith in, AOC or new OC? I guess I'm asking, if the offense struggles, who do you think is more likely the cause? And that's kind of a depressing question, Soto, because neither one have proved anything, right? Like, we have hope and we have faith, and there's been potential that's flashed, and there's been things that you can blame someone else on for them not succeeding, but neither have proven anything.
So what's the question here? I'm guessing who the offensive struggles, who
do you have more faith in? Farva or Getsy?
I think for the team, I want to have more faith in Getsy, because if I have faith in Farva and Getsy lets us down, there's not much you can do as a quarterback if your offensive scheme is not good. But I think, I have,
because there's no Minshew that can jump in and replace Getsy midseason, right? If Farva doesn't get it right, like, we've got
someone
an immediate
else
replacement, right? We've got an understudy right there. If Getsy doesn't pan out, it's another 2.5 seasons of this before he's fired, right? So there's there's that hope. I will say this though, what Getsy can say is that it didn't work in, like, look, how much credit do you want to give Getsy for being passing coordinator for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams? I mean, obviously that offense was fantastic, but it was the two of the best in the NFL with each other. Does Getsy get credit for that? God only knows, right? And then in Chicago, the blame is, well, Getsy's pretty good, but Justin Fields is just not an NFL quarterback. He just can't handle it, which may be true. It may very well be true. We'll find out as Justin Fields bounces around. But that's the only thing that went against Getsy last season, was that hoping that Justin Fields, a highly drafted athletic quarterback, just can't hack it. Farva had way more going against him last season. The stank of Josh McDaniels, never getting QB1 reps, 4th-round rookie, getting thrown in there halfway through the season, learning on the job, switching of head coaches, switching offensive coordinators. You can't lean on his physical gifts because that's not who he is as a quarterback. Like, he had everything going against him last season, whereas Getsy had one thing going against him last season.
Getsy won one less game as an offensive coordinator than we did last year. So he also won some games with an undrafted rookie. He's shown he beat us, right? He's shown that he's able to adjust his system for a quarterback. He just needs the quarterback to be able to run the system. Does that say more about what's his name, Tyson Bagent, or does it say more about Justin Fields, about what he can do and what he's comfortable with, or what Justin Fields couldn't do?
Well, Bagent had won a win, right? He beat us. It wasn't like a big game, but then he fell off and fell apart. So it's like, how much credit do you give?
And it's very similar to what happened with Justin Fields when they just manhandled. I mean, look, the Commanders' defense was absolutely dreadful. Their secondary was awful, and he torched them. Fields and he switched up the game plan, and they played a little bit different, but they weren't able to play that type of style of offense the entire season because it's a lot easier to defend. So he was kind of stuck in a little bit of a purgatory here. Look, let's just call it what it is. Our offense last year was bad. With all the things that you said, our offense last year was bad. Our quarterbacks last year were like 26 and 27 in QBR, respectively. AOC and Farva and Uncle Rico. Okay, so again, like I talked about in the very beginning, we have a lot riding on the development of Aidan O'Connell. Because if that doesn't work, we're going to be a bad. There's no reason why we should be that bad offensively with the weapons that we have. The only reason that I can see is that there's not something clicking with the quarterback position. Now, again, is that going to be because the quarterbacks aren't good enough because they're 26 and 27 respectively in QBR, and that's who they are? Or are they not clicking with the offensive coordinator? I don't see them hiring an offensive coordinator who can't do the job. I don't see all the people around and all the people who have coached for all those years and a Telesco and all these guys not hiring a guy that can do the job.
Well, he was their third pick, remember, at offensive coordinator, right? So people forget Chip Kelly was like turned it down because of money. They were just like, oh, we're not going to pay you enough. So it's like, you know, it wasn't their first pick. So we'll see. I mean, I think, let's call a spade. Neither Farva nor Getsy were like the Raiders, like, this is our guy. This is who we want. This is exactly what we wanted, right? Which rarely is the case. It's rarely the case. You get exactly what you want in football. You're competing against 31 other NFL teams. Victor Ranguiano, 7401. If the story is about a personal matter for a player or coach, it should not be talked about, especially if it has nothing to do with on-the-field play. We're, of course, talking about Antonio Pierce's $28 million bankruptcy that his wife is filing because of bad investments, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this. Antonio Pierce really, really wanted the head coaching job. He made it abundantly clear, right? He wasn't dragged kicking and screaming into that job. He actively lobbied for it. He campaigned for it. He got players to push for it. He got his friends in the media to push it. And in fairness, I think he deserved it, right? And he earned it, right? He wanted it and everything that comes with it. You're a head coach in the NFL. You're a guy that drives an Impala. You get the stud ring, earrings, right? You're a big personality, right? Like, you're doing all this media, you're doing interviews, you're getting attention. Like, great. These are all great things. Like, this is no knocking whatsoever, right? But everything that comes with that is you are now a public figure. And what happens in your life is now newsworthy. That's part of it, right? Like, I will never, ever, ever feel sorry for a celebrity who's did all these movies and did all these interviews and they're super celebrities and they get a DUI and hit somebody and they're like, oh, my alcohol problem is my personal thing. It's like, no, it's everything about you is public. You don't get to choose when you're famous and when you're not. You don't get to turn it on and off when it's convenient for you. And I'm not knocking Antonio Pierce. Again, it's not Antonio Pierce saying, don't talk about it. I think he gets it.
Yeah.
I think everyone else, and I think we handled it fairly. It wasn't like we bashed the guy or anything.
Yeah, look, if we're only talking about on the field stuff, on the field play, then we're not going to have a show for 7 months out of the year because they don't play. They haven't played since January. So we don't talk about the Raiders unless they're playing. I don't know.
And off the field always affects on the field. Like, is he going to have to be in court at some point during this season? Is he actually going to file for bankruptcy? Like, is he going to need a raise from the Raiders to pay him? These are all things that affect us as fans because it affects our team.
It's news related to the Raiders. We're not stretching or making something out of nothing. No, it's a news story that was reported on several very credible news sources. So I don't see the issue here.
Bama Bob 99. I agree with Howie Long. Maxx Crosby goes full speed all regular season. I want to play more games and want a playoff run, and I have to believe he will be better in the playoffs if he's a little healthier and fresher. Look, I understand the mindset. I understand the thought process. Keep him as fresh for those later games. But there's a reason why he wants to play all those plays and he wants to not come off the field, because if he comes off the field, that's when offenses are going to make their move. Like, if he comes off the field and they break a run for 60, was that worth it? Right? Was that worth the extra 45 seconds of rest, an extra 90 seconds of rest that Max got? I'm exaggerating, right? I'm using a very, very big example here, but every play matters. How many seasons as us Raider fans can be like, oh, if we just had that one play in that one game, we would have made it to the AFC or, whatever, right? Like think of the Bengals game, like Bengals playoff game. How many, one terrible coach, referee inadvertent whistle in the end zone cost us. The last terrible play call at the end cost us. Like all it takes is one play to completely change a season. And if Max starts taking some of those off, how many of those plays he takes off turn into that one play that can change the season?
Yeah, I think that's kind of an extremist view of it. If he takes off 3 plays a half, that's 6 a game. That's 100 plays a season. Mm-hmm. We pick and choose the situation when we can pull them out with players like Kuntz and Wilson and Wilkins and stuff like that. We have plenty on that line to be able to put pressure. We don't need to put him out there as much as we're doing it, especially given the injury history he's had. He hasn't missed games, but it's coming. You can only, roll the dice so long before you come up snake eyes, and we're pushing it with what he does to his body to get ready. Yeah, man, you have to save him from himself sometimes because he has been shown to sustain some pretty substantial injuries. So I can see where there's a happy medium between, what you might think that they're trying to do and what Max wants to do, which is miss 0 time. I think there's a happy medium in there to be able to keep him fresher.
That's it for us. Have a fantastic 4th of July Independence Week, everybody. Doing a huge block party. If you're in the Huntington Beach area and you like to come to my block party, hit me up on social media. My address. Come check it out. Bring the kids. I got one of those. I got a 24-foot inflatable water slide.
Jeez.
It's huge to go with the normal water slide that I have for like 5 to 10-year-olds. And then we got like the big kids one. We're getting an ice cream truck that's going to be here at 3. Got the grill out. The wife got me this giant speaker. It's actually not that big. It's like 2 feet tall, but the entire cul-de-sac, it could be deafening. It breaks the laws of physics. This thing should not be that loud. It's gonna be a great time.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. Until then, knock on wood if you're with me.